Okay, so today I'm once again in Star Sports Curzon Street betting shop with Rob Furber. Rob, thanks very much for taking time out to talk to us today. 6 years since I first contacted you, which is nearly a record for actually getting somebody in the chair after trying. That was on the advice of Steve Starkey, who was a professional reality TV punter. You politely declined then. What's changed?
Yeah, well, I half considered wearing a disguise today because I think anonymity is quite important in terms of trying to get the bets down, and discretion I think is crucial. But I guess I've reached a point now where a lot of the betting accounts have been killed off, and I haven't really got that much to lose by being interviewed today. Added to which, I've just had my book published. The Gambler, published in July. Audiobook came out last week, and I'm gonna, shamelessly plug it as you just saw.
Well, before we get into The Gambler, which I will shamelessly plug now, I've read it from cover to cover on holiday. I absolutely loved it. So that's endorsement from me anyway for what that's worth, but it's a thoroughly enjoyable book. So let's talk about how you made your money, or at least the subject of this book and the success that you had, betting on reality TV. Like I say, Steve Starkey was the first I did, and I had no idea that this even existed. So tell us a bit about that, and there's a lot to tell because it's all in the book. But so what shows did you bet on? What was the first one that you suddenly realised you might have a niche bit of skill?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time ago now, a scarily long time ago. You're talking about the early noughties, really, over 20 years ago, when reality TV was suddenly booming in the UK, and you had X Factor, things like Celebrity Big Brother, Strictly Come Dancing as well. And I'm a journalist by profession, and I was working from home as a freelancer when these shows were turning up on our TV screens, and I started to study them and thought, well, I think I can work things out here, and bookmakers started offering prices on all these things, and I had a knowledge of odds, and I suppose I was just in the right place at the right time, really, and pounced.
Now you say in the book that you discovered there was a sort of community of you guys that had sort of cracked it. How big was that community at its height, and how long did it take before you discovered that there was other people that were doing the same sort of thing as you?
I think early on I discovered the specials forum on Betfair, and certainly Saturday nights back then it was always Strictly Come Dancing, BBC One, closely followed by X Factor on ITV, sometimes with a small overlap in between. And people were on the specials forum on Betfair discussing the show, live in running. They'd set up a thread. So it was really interesting to see people there giving their 10 penneth on what they thought. And I suppose it is a little bit collaborative. You have to take on board what other people are thinking and saying. And yeah, next to no time, we'd sort of created a small community, really. And it's hard to say how many people were doing it back then, but I'd say it was, well into the hundreds. Still quite niche, but the markets were buoyant on Betfair. There was great liquidity. Hard to believe now, but X Factor, because I think it also attracted recreational punters, so they were keen to have a bet, and we were there almost with a bit more knowledge than them, and were able to take advantage.
What was the first sort of win that you had that made you think there's something here that I can capitalise on?
I think, as I describe in the book, it was Strictly Come Dancing 2005, which is 20 years ago now, incredibly.
That is scary, isn't it?
It is scary. Darren Gough. And with Strictly, you've got to think about the viewing audience. You know, it's very Middle England, female voters, crucially, because that's the kind of the main demographic. And Gough just struck me as you know, really charming, and he was improving. And I think the opening show was 25-1, and that was a £20 bet with Victor Chandler online, and Gough duly won, and yeah, it went from there.
So what you so you were working as a freelance writer, a journalist, sat at home watching these programs. I suppose the interaction on the forum was you know, you were staying in on Saturday nights to watch these programs and bet on them. I mean, obviously £20 it went a lot bigger than that. And you set up a website. So tell us about the website.
Yeah, because the thing about it was reality TV was booming back then, but there were no websites offering any kind of analysis. And I'd had all this early success, and I thought, well, I should probably try and set up a website and do TV betting analysis, because nobody else was doing it. So entertainmentodds.com, that was born in, I think, August 2009. And I was just writing the articles, helping with my own thought process. Really, you know, it helps to crystallize things in your mind, because you kind of end up really scrutinizing your analysis. And so that really helped me, and it was free then, because I just thought, I'm going to try and help recreational punters, you know, win money on these shows. So yeah, that was the start of entertainmentodds.com, and then Daniel Gould came along early 2010, and he launched sofabet.com totally independently. I just think there was something in the air at the time. He'd had the same thought, you know, let's set up a website and do some TV betting analysis. He was heavily focused on X Factor and obviously Eurovision, which I hadn't touched at that point, but I was about to, because my first Eurovision was 2010.
We'll talk about Eurovision a bit later, but I just putting in my point. I do remember a friend of mine, Andrew Mount, he's one of these statistical people. They used to get cassettes sent around to them. A load of people used to get cassettes, and then they all used to give their opinion on what, you know, which track they liked. I don't think they even knew who they were, what, you know. But that was probably a forerunner of that, because that would have been in the 1990s. But anyway, that's an aside. So you guys are sharing your knowledge, and you're helping recreational punters. So had you gone past the point of being a recreational punter yourself by this time? Were you obviously getting enough money that you didn't worry about sharing the wealth, so to speak?
Absolutely, yeah, because it was very early days in the evolution of TV betting, and the bookmakers were a lot more generous back then. You know, maybe because it was a niche, and the odds compilers hadn't done their homework as much as we had. And yeah, it was just being in the right place at the right time, really, armed with the skills that I had and other people had. And yeah, you know, the Betfair, the liquidity on Betfair was incredible. And you could get bets down online with the bookmakers back then, although the limitations did start to come probably about 2011, something like that.
Now you go a lot more in depth into it in your book, but what were you guys seeing? I mean, you were the mental agility that you were using to try and double guess and stuff. And also, I mean, the looking at polls online for what people sort of, you know, I suppose the sort of person that would vote in a poll is the sort of person that's actually going to vote. So, I mean, what were you seeing that what sort of info was going on the websites, basically?
I was analysing what they were doing on the show in terms of the edit. Running order, for instance, absolutely crucial. If you're on early, you're probably in trouble, especially combined with maybe an unsuitable song, like bad arrangement, whatever it is. Then the judges kind of squabbling between themselves, which is distracting the TV audience. There'd be so many cunning methods that Psycho in particular would use in the way that it managed X Factor. But you get the same sort of things on Strictly Come Dancing. We talk about the coffin slot on first, the pimp slot last in the running order. That's always used in these shows to really big up the contestant. And then, with Strictly, it's about the different dances as well, because fast Latins are notoriously difficult. So you're thinking, that's going to possibly trip someone up, and they're going to be struggling with that. You just think about all of these different variables, and you can come up with ideas about who they're favouring for the win, the series win, and then with the elimination markets each week, who they're looking to put away.